Hello everyone. Hi Rohi. We'll just wait for a minute and then we can give it a start. Okay. I think we may want to give it a start. Rest of the participants will join in as they will. So let's just start with what we were doing yesterday. A small problem with my mouse today. Let me just see if it is going to work. I think it might work. 1 minute. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I think it is working now. So let me just continue from where we left off yesterday. So I was talking about the different type of functions. Yes, and we were at last looking into this query. So this query, what we discussed, count one, because we are using this number one. If there is an index on the students table, that comes into picture. But if there is no where clause, something which I missed out yesterday, in this query you see there is no where clause, right? There's nothing like a where clause. If that's the case, then this index is usually if there is any primary key for this table, which is like the unique key, right? So if there is a primary key, then yes, then this count one will apply on that primary key. Else, if there is no primary key, count one is equal to count start. There is no difference. Usually with small tables, as we have discussed, there is not much of a difference. This time that you see over here is really not going to change much, right? So it's fine. I mean, we may want to use count one when we have good where clauses and uh, just a moment. Sorry. Yeah. So yes, for this time being the execution time with a number of rows like 23, this is really not going to matter. But when we are talking about, let's say, data sets of 15,000, 20,000 records, then that is really going to matter to have good optimization in place so that we can do the data analysis on time and that there is some efficiency within the queries as well, right? So that's the reason why we wanted to know that. But let's continue with the definition of the type of functions which we have, which we were looking yesterday. So let me just clear this. So there are four types of functions. Usually this is the one that we use. Obviously the first most obvious one that we have looked into is aggregations. This is just a quick recap. Then we have some functions related to date and time, right? Then we have some functions which is related to numbers. or related to arithmetic or mathematical operations. And then we have this fourth type of function, which are string functions, right? Almost all of them are really very, very useful, I would say. But numeric functions, I have myself not used much when it comes to MySQL, because I've extracted the raw data and I've prepared the data using str functions. Sometimes I've analyzed them using aggregate functions. Sometimes I've extracted raw data or the sample of my data from the population, right? So that's the purpose why we are learning MySQL. So we are learning MySQL so that we can analyze the data which is inside a database in form of tables like, let's say, students, right? So I have myself majorly used, let's say, numeric functions, datetime functions, aggregate functions, okay, and string functions. But numeric functions are the least that I've used, because once I apply the string functions, aggregate functions, and datetime functions, and I get the data, and we will learn how to extract the data in a CSV format very soon. Then I take this data, or maybe once I've prepared it in form of a view or in form of an extract, I usually do further analysis using Python, or it can be R, right? In some cases, it may well be Excel, because Excel is also absolutely powerful when it comes to analysis of this kind of sets of data, right? So that's the point here. So we will look into some of the functions. We have already looked into some of the string functions. Very few of numeric functions we have already looked into, but let's just look into some more functions. So before we do that, let's just see how many tables we have. We have 3 tables, and let's do a select star from course, or let's also do a select star from students. Okay, so this is our course table, this is our students table, right? So let's just start with some of our aggregation functions, yeah, or some of our built-in functions that we are going to use. Now these functions that we are looking into, right? So these functions are also known as built-in functions. Built-in functions, why they are called built-in, is because you are not going to code it for yourself. You're not going to really write any code which is going to give you the output let's say the function that you would like to run it. So that's why they are called inbuilt. They come along with the database, right? So that's why they are inbuilt, right? Let's just go ahead with some of the functions. We have already seen a few, but let's just look into a few more. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to look into, okay, the first thing, a very, very uh, important kind of function is something like, let's say, I'm just going to do a select star from course, because then I can explain this in a better way. We're going to look at a function called char length. Okay, char length is the length of the characters. Okay, so let's say I want to look at the character length of each and every name of the course, right? So if I do this, I'm going to get the length of the name, right? This might sound really funny, but this is a very useful feature, right? Because it's a string function which is returning a number of characters which are there in the string. And the reason why this is important is because this helps us find if there are any outliers. Okay, example given, let's see if I can find the outlier from the students table. Okay, so let's just, sorry, I think I just mistyped things. Can you see the output here? I can clearly see who is the outlier here. Row number 2, row number 3. Obviously, row number 3 should be my name if I'm not wrong. Let's just run this query once more, and we will come to know student ID, name, and char length of name. I'll rename this as name length, right? Let me just clear the screen and enter this. Clearly, it is my name which is an outlier, right? Now, why is this really an important thing? This is important thing when you are going to deal with columns or data sets which contains character values or which contains string values. In this way, you will be able to find out if there are any value in your data set which is more large than what you already have. This is going to help, right? So that's the first function we looked into. Now let's look into something else. Let's look into another very interesting function called instr. Okay, the full form of instr is in string. Okay, in string. and there are two parameters which this function takes. The first parameter, okay, is a string which is my input string. The second, which is the string which I want to find inside the input string, right? The output is going to be a number, which is the position of the string or my substring inside the string. Or in other words, in string with two arguments, string and substring, is going to return me the position in the string where the substring first occurs. If the substring is not there in the string, then the output will be 0, right? Let's look into a very quick example. Is there any course which has the letter Z? The answer is no. I can also beautify this query by writing a distinct clause, right? Or even I may want to do something like I am getting 1 as an output, which is wrong. I just have to take care of that in a very logical way, right? But if I do the previous query, it is quite clear. If I am getting a 0, and I will tell you how to take care of that count courses thing which we did over here, right? So we did a query, but we were not able to get the answer which we were expecting. So at least I was expecting that I'll take a count of such courses where I have the letter Z, right? But there are other easy ways to do, right? There are other easy ways to do it as well. So let's say the other way to do will be something like this. Let's say I'll just clear the screen and I'm going to say count of distinct or count star, okay, count of star as count of courses from course where instr name Z, okay, is not equal to 0, right? Exactly what I'm doing over here is I'm taking a count, select a count as count of courses from the table course where in string function or the output of that in string function is not equal to 0. Now what is this in string function doing? It is searching for Z, which is my substring, within the string which is to be found within the name column. So name is a column in this table where in each and every row, in each and every value, I am trying to search Z. If that letter is there, okay, if the letter is there, then this function outputs the position of the letter. If it is not there, it returns me with 0. So I'm trying to find the cases where it is not equal to 0. It means this letter or this particular substring exists within any row of the string, right? This is a very important function because it helps us understand from a very big data set if there is one, let's say, column which contains the data that I am looking for, right? Example given, if there is some big data set, just a moment, if there's some kind of a big, let's say, data set which contains the uh, some textual field which is related to the names of the hospitals, or it is related to the areas in which the hospitals are. I just want to do a quick search and find out if my data has the list of hospitals which is of that specific area where I am currently living. So these are kind of checks that I can do to ensure whether my data is correct or not, or whether I have certain elements present in my data or not, and so on. Right? I hope it was clear. Let's move on to the next function. Okay. The next function is just a moment. The next function is my concatenation function. So concatenation function we have already looked into. But let us quickly look into the concatenation function once more. Why the case is because, yeah, Rohi, go ahead. Hello. Sorry, Rohi, I cannot hear you. Can you hear me? Sorry, Rohi, there seems to be some problem with your microphone. Can you type it on the chat window? No, Rohi, at least I cannot hear you. So maybe you may want to rejoin and I can wait. Or you may want to reinsert your headphones. Okay. Okay. Let's just wait for Rohi to rejoin. Hi, Rohi. Can you hear me now?
Hello, am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible now. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying if suppose the value is present two times, like suppose a character Z is present two times,
Mm-hmm.
then what will be the output in that?
Okay, let's just quickly check that. So let's just check this. So I think there are courses in our list, right, where the course has the character D, right? So there are courses. So just to make this clear, let me just print the name of the courses. So let me just print the name of the courses. So let's not take D, let's take A, right? So if I print A, right, or if I am searching for A, I hope you can see my screen. What is happening here is 2. It is actually returning 2 here. In this case, why is this the case? Is because it is returning the first occurrence of this letter. So if substring is present in the string, then return me the first occurrence of that letter. Else you have to return 0.
Okay, okay, yeah, it will return the first offense. Okay, got it.
Okay, even better example will be E, right? Look at the second line or even the first line, right? So if I count, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? This is the 8th place where E occurs at the first time. So that's 8. If I count here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See? So this E, the E of SCIE, is actually on the 9th place. The indexing is going to start from 1, right?
Okay, okay. Also, is there any other function which gives all the occurrences, like not just only the first one?
It might be, but I'm not sure. I've never used such kind of function, but maybe we can search. I think we can search for it. Let me search. If I find something, maybe I can share with you.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead. Let's look into quickly the concat function once more. So why I wanted to do the concat function is that I just wanted to quickly do the concat function. I'm going to make it a bit, let's say, difficult. So this course starts with the letter and the output of this function D in position this as concat output, right? So what I'm doing over here is as simple as I'm using this concat function and I'm actually concatenating more than two values. So this was just to show us that we can actually concat more than two values, because the examples which we took earlier, right, that was only for a single value or two values, right? So we concatenated two values a day. We can do for multiple values as well. Now, in this way, we can structure our sentences like this. We can clean our text like this. This is a very nice output, right? So we can kind of structure our output like this. We can format our output like this. We can format the columns or the values which are inside it. Now there is the next function. It's a very interesting kind of function. It takes only one argument. In this case, I'm going to pass the name of column and I'm going to call it as reverse. Why this function helps is specifically in case of the textual analysis problems, where I would like to know if a word, just a moment, I have forgotten the name of that word. Just a moment. Yeah,
Is
I
it
just yeah, yes,
palindrome?
yes, I just remembered it. So if there is any use case of textual analysis where we would like to do a palindrome check, right, then this is really going to come handy, right? We can check if name is equal to reverse name, right? So how we can do that is because let's say name and reverse name from course where name is equal to reverse of name, right? So I have no such name where the reverse is also the same, right? So this reverse function is really useful. Okay, it just returns the string in the reverse order. Let me be very clear, it does not make any changes with the case of the strings. Okay, it does not play around with the case. Now there are two very important functions which helps us understand, again in case of textual analysis more so. In some cases of numerical analysis also it might help, but it is more towards textual. So if I want to know, let's say if there is a column which is the name of this course, right? Again, I'll take the example of the name of the course. If that course starts with a value or ends with a value, right? So how do I know that? There is a very easy way. Or what value? Let's say in a different context, the question can be rephrased as, what is the value at the starting of the sentence or at the starting of that value in that row and the end of the sentence, right? Even more precise way to ask the question will be, what is the first two characters which is at the start of each and every string, or what is the last three characters at the end of the string? So to do this, I can use functions like left, comma, 3. I'm intentionally keeping name over here so that I can explain what is going on. Left takes two arguments. First is the column name, which is name. So each and every row will become an input to this function. And then it is counting for 3. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. So that's the kind of name it is giving me. Now, how is this important? How is this important? Now, imagine I would like to change the course IDs. Okay, my college has decided that giving a course ID as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4 is not really helping, right? Let me just describe course and see what else is there. It is only course ID and name. So my university decided we have to be far more specific. We have to give course IDs basis some kind of a nomenclature, right? And we have to do it in a very, very good way. So what I am doing is I'm simply using a concat function. I'm taking the left three from the name. I am concatenating a hyphen, and then I'm concatenating the existing course ID, and I'm naming this as the new course ID. And now I get a new course ID. Now my college, the authorities who are actually deciding this are again coming back to me. They're saying, no, this is again a problem. How do you define dat one, dat two, and dat three? That you have to make it a little bit more specific, right? So that it becomes unique. I know it is still unique, but maybe we can do something better because it's not really very good to the eye. Alg 4 means what? Is that the fourth course? Is that the fourth course when it comes to algorithms? Not really. It's the fourth course in your list that starts with the words ALG, right? So why not make it a bit better, right? So what I do, I just change this to 4, right? Again, that problem remains with data and things of this sort, right? Then what do? I take another function, which I'm going to concatenate now in this list after a hyphen. And that function is the synonymous function or the analogous function of the left function. So left function was taking the 4 letters from the left. Now I'm going to take a right function, pass the name, and take the 4 letters from the right. Right? Or maybe I'm just going to take 2 letters from the right. Right? Or maybe tomorrow I can also change this and I can reorder things. Right? I can put this 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the end and so on and so on. Right? So that's the kind of tasks that we can do using these functions like left and right. So left is taking these many number of digits from the left side of my input, which in this case is name column. And the right is taking this many number of digits from the right side or from the right hand side of this field. Now, basis the language in which you have entered data in the database, this might cause problems as well. You have to remember that because there can be databases where you have installed languages like Urdu who are in the reverse order, right? So in such kind of edge cases, things might get a bit ugly, and we may have to convert that language into UTF-8 or in a proper English format, and then we have to use it. For that, we have different kind of functions. If we do have such kind of functions provided by database, well and good, we are lucky. If that's not the case, then we have to write our own functions, right? We will not be covering how to write our own functions in this kind of a series that we're doing, but I will share you the kind of things. It is also called a stored procedure, which is a very common thing which are there in the databases. That will be too much for a data scientist or a data analyst to learn. But if out of interest we would like to learn, yes, no problem. We can write stored procedures usually in T-SQL or PL/SQL language, in kind of a procedural language which uses SQL, and then we can store that as an object inside the database just like a function, and then we can call it as and when we want, right? So that's the point here. Okay, let's just move on. Let's take the next function. So the next function that we are going to look at is a very cool thing which we can do with padding the data. Okay, so what do I mean by padding the data? So let me just clear the screen and let me go back. Okay, so I am printing this, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use another function on top of this, which is rpad. Okay, I will explain what this rpad is doing. I think there is some issue. Oh, incorrect parameters. Yeah, of course. Yes. rpad concat. What problem did I do? I think some issue. Let me just simplify this. Right. So what this rpad is doing, let me just change this. Maybe this star thing is not working. Yeah, this seems to be fine, but why is it not giving me the results that I want? So let me just try something out of the box. So let me just do this, and I'll say some text. Okay, and I'll just run this. This is going to tell us the output. Okay, so there is some problem. I believe it is either with my screen with this putty window, or it might be some problem with this version of the database. So let me just quickly explain this to you. I believe this is something that we have to go back and we have to check this. Okay, so let me just explain you what is the padding function doing. So there are two padding functions. One is called rpad, and the other is called lpad. Okay, so this function is going to do padding, pad. Okay, and either it is going to be on the right side, okay, or it is going to be on the left side, right? So what if it is on the right side? If I want to do a padding on the right side, right? So what I would like to, okay, now I think I have got the problem. I think I have got the problem. Let me just clear the drawings. Let me just make this 20. Yes, that is the mistake that I was doing. Yeah, I'm sorry for this. I forgot the syntax. Let me just do my original thing, and I'm going to call it this. Okay, so I'm going to make this even more funnier by doing this. So what I'm doing over here is I'm calling the rpad functions, and this rpad function is taking this earlier output. Okay, without the rpad function, I was getting only this. Now what I am doing is I am padding this value at the end of the string that I've already received, right? So as to, okay, so as to make the length of the string equal to this number. In other words, if I have varied length of values in a textual column, I can format them in this way. Example, let's take the name of my students. Okay, or maybe we are just going to take the name. Okay, we'll just take the name and nothing else. We'll just take the name. If I take the name, irrespective of the size of the name, you see what it is doing. This is a bigger size, this is a smaller size. This is a somewhat bigger size, this is somewhat smaller. And it is padding things so that the length, okay, the size becomes exactly the same. Now, why in the earth would I like to do this? Because this may not be adding any value, right? This may not be adding any value to my analysis, right? There are two things that we need to take care of here. LPAD and RPAD functions works as a streamer as well. That is what I was doing earlier. That's the first use case. The second use case is only to beautify the output. Okay, rather than that, there is no other reason why you would like to use LPAD and RPAD. Let me explain. If I do a clearing of the screen, and now I'm changing this thing to 5. So irrespective of what I'm entering over here, that is irrelevant. I'm taking 5. And then this comes into effect. So the first thing that is really relevant is this number. The second thing which is relevant is this value. Let's just take another example, and then we are going to compare these two examples and see what is going on over here. So what we are doing over here is we are specifying a column name in RPad, and then we are saying we need 5 of the characters. We need the final output to be of length 5. Now my question is this length 5? I can clearly see this is length 4, right? But as per the database, this is length 5 because the space is also considered as a character, right? So data, DATA, and then the space, this becomes 5. So it has basically trimmed this text and given me the first 5 letters. Why? Because I have done a R pad, right? I have done an R pad. So that's why it is trying to pad everything on the right hand side. And hypothetically, it is only giving me the first 5 letters. Now, what happens to this? This sign is no longer having any value because the value that I'm passing over here is much less than the actual length. How do I know the actual length? Is there a function to know the actual length? The answer is yes. There is a function to know the actual length. I'm sure it is alien, but let me just try it. If alien does not work, it will be length. So let's try length. Yeah. So this name, this string over here is of length 16. This length over here is 12. This length is 15. This length is 11. Okay, none of them have a length less than 5. And that's the reason why it has trimmed it. Now, what if I use an LPad? If I use an LPad, it is essentially in this case not doing anything because it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter whether I'm doing a right pad or a left pad because this number that I've entered is much less than the length of each and every field. And that's the reason why LPad and RPad behaves in the same way. It's simply giving me a trimmed version of the first n letters which are there in a string, right? This is exactly what it is doing. Nothing more, right? So that's the first function, or the second function is going to be how to beautify it. So example given, if I just close this and go back to our original example, and maybe I'm going to remove this. So it is just going to beautify it, maybe even better. I'm just going to remove this. I'm just going to remove this, and I'm going to type name. It is simply beautifying my output. That's all. If I do an LPad, okay, it is simply beautifying my output. Why is it able to beautify this output? Is because this time 25, the value that I've passed is more than the length. If it was less than the length, it would have done trim. If it is more than the length, it simply prints the values, right? I see no practical usage of this other than beautification. So if you are going to present things, if you're going to do analysis which will be presented to the management, okay, then you can use this kind of techniques, right? Example given, sometimes I've seen people use things like this, right? As per them, it looks good. So rather than using star, I can use dot. And they say that this is looking good. Right? In some US kind of systems also, they might use a very old kind of systems, they might use things like this looks good or feels good and so on. Right? In the data analysis process, maybe this has no value. Or this may have one value, is that if I would like to find out how much empty space is there in that string, maybe in some kind of textual analysis this will come into place. So counting the number of dots that I have over here, right? Counting the number of dots that I have over here is going to tell me how many dots or what is the size of dots that I've added. It, it may signify how lengthy or how small the text is, but I can anyways do that with the length function, right? Right. So that's the LPad and the RPad. Let's move ahead and let's look into our, again, we have looked into the substring function earlier, right? But let's just look into the substring function quickly once, and then we are going to move ahead. Okay. So select CID name substring substr. If you remember, that was the function name. So substring 1,4 as short name from course. If I do this, I get the first 4 letters. So it starts from 1 and it gives me 4 letters. Very interesting thing to note. If I do this also, it will work. If I don't pass the last argument, it is the same. So substring does not do anything. I'm not sure why the developers added this feature. But if in substring I forget to add any such value, it gives me exactly the string output. Right? Maybe in some programming constructs this will come handy. Right? Just a quick review of what we could do with the substring function. Right? But let's look at one edge case which comes in the substring function. Okay. What if I have entered, let's say both the values. Okay, I've entered, let's say both the values, but I've entered the first value as -10. -10 is the value that I've entered, or maybe I've entered a value which is something like this. Let me just clear it. So there are things on my screen which I'm not able to. 5, right? What is happening in this case if I'm entering a -5? -5 means substring is going to count the occurrences from the backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Because it has a minus sign, it counts from the backwards, counts 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it has the second argument, which is 4. So it's going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. So it returns me stem. This may well be a good thing if I would like to convert or change that CID thing, right? So if I would like to change my course ID, I can even propose to my university management that I would like to do this kind of a naming convention, right? But what happens if I don't enter anything over here? It prints me everything. See the difference between the first query and the second query. In the first query, I entered the number of letters I would like to substring out of it. So it returned me exactly 4 letters. Here I'm not specifying it. That's why it is printing everything else after -5. So it is going back 5 places and then it is printing those 5 letters. So substring name -5 is as simple as print me the last 5 letters. Are you getting my point? So that's a handy feature. We may want to use it whenever we are doing any data analysis, right? Now, let's move ahead and let's look into some more functions. Okay, in another window, I'm just looking into the MySQL, let's say, documentations. And I'm just trying to figure out what functions I should share with you so that it is useful for us, right? So I've got a few date and time functions. Maybe we can look into this and then we can make it a close for today. And then from tomorrow, we'll continue from here, right? I understand that we are spending quite some amount of time when it comes to functions, but yes, this will be required. I mean, if we can make note of all the functions that we are looking at here, or of course, I will be sharing you documentations. I have some books that I'm going to share with you, right? I'm going to share a couple of books that I've downloaded. So these functions are really going to come handy because that's the main thing which we do when it comes to sampling of the data, right? It's like using where clauses and conditions and all these things. And then to prepare the data, to wrangle, to format the data, we have to use functions, right? So that's the reason why we are using functions. Let's now look into some other kind of function. Let's say I'm doing, so let's start from enrolled. Okay. So enrolled a table contains the student ID, the course ID, and the grade. I just want to add a new column as part of the output. The output should contain a new column. Okay, the output should contain a new column. Okay, which is going to be the current date. Let's say. So how do I do that? The function to print the current date is now, right? But I have to put it in capital letters. If I print this, right, if I execute this, it gives me the date, the current date. Now let's quickly look at what is the format in which it gives me. This format is otherwise known as YYYY MM-DD, and then there is a space. Okay, there is a space, and then we have HH24 colon, and then the minutes, and then the seconds. Why did I take so much of effort to explain this? Is because this is the standard format in which now or date time is usually represented within MySQL. If you would like to change this format, you also have an option to do it. There is a format clause, right, which we can use to change the format in which we are printing the date, the time, right? But please remember the format in which it is printing. It is year, month, and date. It is 0 printed a month if the month is less than 10, right? So it is like, because it is September, in October it will become 10. So because it is September, it is 09. Had it been the case today was 2nd of September, it would have printed the date as 02, right? And then I have the date followed by a space. This is a space. And then I have HH24. What is HH24? It is 00 until 23 hours, right? So it is printing this 1551 because my time zone might be something like this. The time zone of the server will be something like this. The time zone of the server will be something like 15, right? Actually, it is 23 right now, right? But it is converting that time into this 1551, and not sure why it is doing it in that way. Maybe the server is running in a different time zone. We just have to change the time zone of the server, and it's going to work, right? But 1 minute. When we created the server, we created it in the Mumbai region. If you remember, in AWS, when we were creating the server, right, we selected the Mumbai region. Then how is it possible that the current time in India is 21:23 and the time which is getting printed over here is 15:51? The reason why this is so is because MySQL database, or for that matter any database, have their own configurations, that overrides the system time. So the server is in Mumbai. Mumbai has a time which is 21:23. Now it is 21:24, sorry, which is the time 21:24. But the configuration of MySQL might be, let's say, UTC. And that's why this configuration of the MySQL database has overridden this configuration. And it is showing me the date and time in UTC. Please remember this is very important. Whenever we are doing any date time calculations, it is not only important to remember the format, it is also important to remember the time zone in which your MySQL server is configured to be. Right? That's why, or that's how you can do better analysis of data. That's how you can do a better sampling of data, or otherwise there will be issues. Right? You may get lesser data, you may get more data, and all these things. Right? So let's just clear the diagrams and let's go ahead with some more functions, and then we can make it a day. So let me just replace this now function with the next set of functions. The next function I would like to tell you about is CUR date. So we have looked into now function. Let's look at CUR date. CUR date is just a small date representation of the current date. That's all. So it is called the current date. Right? Now is giving you the date as well as the time. Okay, now is giving you date as well as the time, so you can use it something like this, right? It is quite interesting to see that in this version of MySQL they have added this feature of smaller case. Earlier that was not there, right? So now is the current date as well as time, while current date is only the date. Okay, is there anything to take care of the current time? The answer is yes. We do have something which is going to take care of the current time as well. So I can say CURTIME and it's going to give me the current time. So now is basically a concatenation of current date and current time. So I can clearly say something like this, okay, comma, and then I'll give a comma. I hope you have understood what I'm trying to do. And then I'm going to give a concat over here. And then this two output is going to be exactly the same, right? So but depending on the use case that you are working upon, you can use it. Now let's look at some more functions which we are going to use to extract information out of it. Now, in this example, what have we done? We have simply printed information, right? We have not extracted anything out of it. So we have not learned anything out of it. So let's say I would like to learn what year it is, right? Then I can do year. Now, how do you think this is going to be beneficial when I'm doing a kind of, let's say, the analysis? The analysis wise, it will be helpful. Let's say this now thing or this column, the data which is printed in this column, okay, is actually from the database itself. So it has distinct values. And I just want to know when this student was added, in which year this student got enrolled. So I can extract the year. Okay. In the same way, I can also extract the month. I can extract the month. It is going to give me the numerical format of the month. I can convert that numerical format into human readable format like September and all these things. Right? There are formats in which I can represent that as well. So no problem. Are you getting my point? So let's say I would like to represent this as a proper good format. I'm going to use a function called month name. So that student 53666 enrolled in the course ID 1 who has also got a grade of A in the year 2020 in the month of September. Are you getting my point? So this is the kind of things that we can do with these functions, right? Then we have another function which also takes care of the day name, the hour, the minute, and the second, and so on. So let's say I'm just going to simplify this now. So here I'm just going to remove this, all these things. So year, month name, and then I'm going to say day name, right? And I'm going to say hour, and then I'm going to say maybe minute of current time, and then I'm going to say, let's say, seconds of the current time. Okay. I don't think seconds is there. Maybe it is second. Yeah. Right. So if I execute this kind of a command, right, I can get some values from the DB. I can extract year. I can represent month in a different way. I can represent day name in a different way. I can represent hour of time. I can represent the minute. I can represent the second. I can go to this level of granularity. That's the point which I wanted to. Okay. Basis case by case. I mean, it is entirely dependent on what use case you will be working on, what kind of data wrangling you are doing. So basis that only, this is going to come handy. Okay. Basis that only, it is going to come handy, nothing more. Okay, let's make a stop over here. This is kind of a logical stop. So tomorrow we will look into more functions, and tomorrow we will look into a very important aspect of these date time arithmetic functions. So date time functions also allow us to do some kind of arithmetics with the date time by themselves. So that is really helpful if we would like to, change the time zone and do some kind of calculations and do some kind of plus and minuses and all that. Right, but let's look into it, let's say tomorrow. I'm going to stop the sharing. If you have any queries, please do let me know. Okay.
Thanks, Mohammed.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you.